Let's kick this off. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I am Kyle Bird, Director of Marketing at Mysa HQ. And today's topic, we're talking about overwhelmed facility managers trying to keep up with increasing demands and stagnant resources, which can mean headcount, technology, or even budget. So technological solutions can help, but that doesn't necessarily mean the organization's on board. So in this conversation, we'll discuss how facility managers can frame, pitch, and prove the value of an EMS in terms that executives actually care about, like ROI, growth, risk reduction, their kind of language. So we brought in the experts. Joining us today is Jeremy Lombardo, the facilities manager at Neighbourly Pharmacy, who has over 300 stores. I just read that there's 33 new ones as of this fall. So congrats to Neighbourly on that. Godspeed to you, Jeremy. I think that's a lot gets fall on your lap. So this is really on cue with a topic today. And Jeremy's gone through the process of adopting new technology and getting the executive team on board. So your insights are going to be great. Thank you for joining, Jeremy.
Thank you,
And from
Kyle.
side, we've got Peter Gifford, VP of Product at Mysa HQ, and has the unique perspective of having worked with many organizations in adopting energy management systems and the process in which different organizations and different roles on the decision committee operate in getting a new system successfully implemented. So thank you very much for joining us, both of you. Let's jump in. So first question, I'm going to go to you, Jeremy. We've got some common challenges on screen here, but what are some of the unique challenges that Neighbourly has faced when it comes to managing HVAC across a distributed portfolio of sites?
Thank you for the question, Kyle. This is an interesting one indeed. Our model, business model, is a standard roll-up strategy. We acquire pharmacies in smaller communities across the country that the owner operator is looking to exit the business, but they need someone to take over their legacy and service those smaller communities. If they were to have to close their doors, their brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, friends, and colleagues would unfortunately sometimes need to travel an hour to get to the next closest pharmacy, access to medication and healthcare. So because of our buying tendencies and the geography, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, where yes, you're buying into either a monopoly or an oligopoly business model, where you're protected and insulated, but at the same time, you're protected and insulated, which means that cost for services is priced at a multiple. We need to divert talent from other communities, bigger city centers, things of that nature. So it's also challenging, given that facilities is typically not the most glamorous department within a company, especially one that's pharmacy focused. We've got a team of pharmacists and clinical service professionals that are really driving the service that our company is providing. But our facilities team is very small, and we can't be in all places at all times. So playing the role of an FM from behind a desk and quarterbacking HVAC services across the country can provide its own unique challenges as well, because of simply the distance and the age of the building and the age of the equipment. Because we're buying these stores in smaller and running these stores in smaller communities across the country, some of the buildings are turn of the century, 100-year-old buildings on Main Street in these smaller communities, and we don't always have the most sophisticated landlords, and lease agreements aren't necessarily um, a level playing field. They may be very one-sided, but they're all different, right? So uh, spending time understanding the responsibilities, um, being able to coordinate uh, uh, the appropriate preventative maintenance protocols for all of these different units, and having to leverage multiple service partners in order to reach all these units. It certainly adds a degree of complexity to what we do as FMs.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah, it
sorry, go
sounds
ahead.
position model is really presenting the challenges because you can't predict what you're going to get with the age and the infrastructure, your assets. So there's a lot of surprises to be done there. But don't shortchange
Absolutely.
yourself on not being glamorous. You have a stake in the community, and I like that about Neighbourly Pharmacy. You got to keep it going. It's more than just a business. So Peter, let's go to you. You know, you've worked with a lot of facility teams. What are some of the most common issues that you've noticed that facility managers are facing when it comes to distributed HVAC management that may not be represented in the case of Neighbourly Pharmacy?
I mean, first off, I'd say the Neighborly's not a unique case. I think you guys have struggles that are aligned with a lot of bigger organizations and a lot of other organizations. But if I was to summarize it down, it seems to me that facilities managers at all levels are being asked to do more with less, which means that their time is just spread thinner and thinner, and they've got to make really critical decisions with as much information as they can get, and often that's not very much information. So, like, first and foremost, these folks on facility teams are just being stretched thinner and thinner as organizations get bigger, and their degree of responsibility just keeps increasing. So. We're looking for ways to help on that. Associated with that is just visibility into the organization itself. What rooftop units have you got? What is the thermostat that you're using today? What is currently happening inside of my buildings? And how does the decisions that the folks who are in the buildings and the folks that are running the buildings, how does that influence it? Do I need to send a technician, and all of the troubleshooting associated with the building and the envelope itself, and some of the lack of visibility into those things? Those are all challenges that I think make it hard for facilities managers to kind of know what to do next or know what to do first when it comes to saving costs and saving energy. I think the next one is that in general, my take from conversations with facilities managers is they know that there's energy waste. They're aware that they're sending technicians to buildings that may not need a technician to be there, but they're not clear on where to start and where the most important place is. And it's not obvious how they can do it given the limited resources that they have. Constantly in firefighting mode, and very hard to break out into like a more strategic planning perspective. And then so like if we take off of that is like I think the question we get most frequently is how do we give the facilities managers and all of the stakeholders that they report to confidence that if they make this bet, if they decide to roll out an EMS system, that they're going to roll out an EMS system without adding a ton of load to their already busy days. And that means predictably deploying thermostats, making sure that they're connected to a network, making sure that they're controlling the building effectively, that folks are comfortable and not complaining, all of those things, and that there's not a ton of rework. And so like there's all of this concern associated with that. And then kind of like the thing that is not always first to be on the list, but definitely is a thing we've thought a lot about is, how am I going to convince the IT manager or network supervisor that bringing on a fleet of connected thermostats is not going to add some vulnerability? And how do we protect the assets that we've got, both physical and digital?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like how you outlined how difficult it is even just to understand like what types of rooftop units does each location have. Like it seems simple, but not always. And what that forces you to do is just take the expensive option to just rolling a truck and figuring out what the problem is, but it's almost the lesser of two evils, right? At least that's a path to a resolution, and sometimes you get stuck in that. So, some good perspectives on some of the issues. Now, Jeremy, paint a picture for those watching. What about an EMS like Mysa HQ made it seem like it could help solve some of those challenges?
Well, the answer to this question is twofold, right? The first is it comes from the camp of what's in it for me as an FM professional, and then the other is what's in it for the organization. And I know that my motivations for adopting a tool or a program like this um, aren't necessarily the same motivators for our senior leadership team to make a buying decision or an investment of time and energy into a resource. So from an FM perspective, um, I need to be in multiple places at once. Um, and a program that would allow me to see into all of the stores at any given time is a huge asset. Um, Also, the ability to see if our equipment is running and functioning properly. When we first rolled out the program, I had a complaint indicating that our HVAC worked fine until we installed this smart thermostat device, and now the store is never the right temperature. And after looking into it, we identified that the HVAC unit was struggling to reach set point. And the reason why the temperature was fine before is because the team in the store had the thermostat cranked all the way up, and they were running it constantly in order to produce the cooling that they needed in that feel good temperature inside the store, uh, at the risk of blowing out their AC and not having one for the duration of the summer, right? So that little anecdote demonstrates the value for me because I'm able to identify an issue when it's small and repairable and avoid a full system failure, right? It's the same as in healthcare, leveraging an anecdote uh, from 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 the healthcare side of the business is if we're able to diagnose ailments early, then there's a chance that uh, we can treat the issue or the disease before we suffer a fatality, right? So same thing with the equipment. Early detection is the most cost effective way of fixing a problem, and a tool like this lets me see that before we have a crisis, before the team in the store realizes that there's something really going on. We're able to address it, diagnose it, and address it. Now, on the flip side of the coin, um, leadership responds to ROI, right? They're looking for programs that will save the company money. And uh, a simple adjustment of temperature, every degree reduced for an 8-hour period, can potentially save a company a percentage point on their overhead for their utilities. So by setting an occupied and an unoccupied temperature 10 degrees lower, then um, then you can produce savings for the business, right? So it was this, I can get my cake and I can eat it too. I can get that diagnostic tool. I can become omnipresent across my organization and see into the well-being of our expensive rooftop equipment. without traveling to all the stores and producing expenses for the business. And I can also be an environmentally conscious, responsible citizen in our community and save money for the business at the same time. So that
Right.
was the thought process of how it would benefit myself and the organization, which turns into a win-win partnership.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. So on your side for the facility manager, it's really about becoming proactive instead of reactively dealing with issues and choosing the best solution as opposed to kind of having to deal with it the quick and potentially costly way. And then on the organization side, being ROI focused, no doubt, their language is down to the bottom line. And so there's different things, but it's kind of two birds with one stone. So that helps to kind of envision how the different parts of the business are seeing value there. So, and that's a great segue to the next point here is, so once you've decided that, okay, the technology like this makes sense, what steps did you take to get the executives on board? And part of that was like starting with ROI. So maybe that's a good place to start here.
Well, it's a marathon and not a sprint. There it's tough because it is like any FM that I talked in the community has a similar story where there's a stigma where if something is broken, we fix it. We're called out to address problems after they happen from a very reactive framework. So we all have to advocate for ourselves and the profession internally. There's a unique value add that we can all add to our business, but it's up to us to advocate for that. And it really comes down to relationship economics for me anyway, where I throw a jacket on. I dress like a C-suite member when I go to the office, leave maybe the utility boots at home. I show that I have and my team has an attitude of how can I add to the business? How can I take something away from your team that you're struggling with? And how can we be of maximum service to our leadership and our stakeholders, right? And it comes with a lot of seed planting and building rapport with different members of different departments, a lot of planting seeds of initiatives that we're working on that might add value to their initiatives, and asking questions, listening to answers, retaining that information, and then bringing them up in future conversations with those different colleagues, subordinates, leaders, and what have you. And that's similar to what happened with the EMS program originally, and our introduction here at Neighbourly. It's about that serendipitous point where readiness meets opportunity. I was having conversations in the background with the Mysa team and with several other players that have similar solutions. And when I was asked a question point blank, what can we do about reducing our utility bill? I was armed with the answer. So instead of a push, it was more of a pull. And that, because I wasn't pitching them something, they were asking me and I was responding from a position of experience. We got that initial traction, right? And that's kind of what made all the difference.
Nice. So the specific order was pretty important. It doesn't. I tell the same thing to my kids. Like they ask for something like right now at this very moment. It's like, well, you do a lot better if you plan ahead, have a plan, put things in motion, and it's a lot more likely to happen. And that goes the same way for this. So, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Um, so, Peter, how do you think Mysa HQ supports our customers in proving that ROI?
Yeah, so I'll start at the planning phase of even before we've signed a deal with a potential customer. When we think about Mysa HQ, I feel like we want to get in the ring with the facility manager and stand next to them and try and help put together the best case to get the platform and our thermostats into buildings. And part of the way that we're able to do that is looking at the organization overall, trying to help identify where the best pilot deployment might be, and then being there even before deployment starts to help make sure that deployment goes well. And then working with the people that they're working with already. So like, let's kind of unpack that a little bit further. On the ROI side, what that means is if you know all of the geographic locations of all of the brand sites, then you're able, and you know their hours and a few other characteristics, you're able to do a pretty strong estimate of where the return on investment will be strongest. So where is the best potential areas to save money? Is that the coldest or hottest climate with the highest utility bills and the most variable hours? Likely yes, and there's a little bit of an art to trying to figure out which one of those many locations are the ones that we should start with. And then once you've got that list, making sure that we're ready and that their partner, the brand that we're working with's partner is ready to do the deployment. And so that can be everything from doing a site investigation before a technician goes to install thermostats to being on the phone with a preferred HVAC technician while they're doing the installation to make sure that things are online. And then the last thing is like, I have found that facilities managers and HVAC technicians are incredible at their roles, but there's no need to ask them to do 10 additional things, and we should keep it as simple as we can. And so I think a big thing that we've tried to figure out is how do we make installation just the most simple that it could possibly be? And so that means thermostats that arrive in a box, pre-provisioned to a network that is completely independent from the site's network, so that HVAC technicians are doing the things that they're excellent at, installing thermostats, making sure that HVAC systems are working efficiently and effectively, making sure that they're under control. And we are taking care of the part that we are really excellent at, which is deploying a fleet of thermostats across a huge geographic region. I think that this is an area where we're getting way better. Jeremy, I appreciate your patience in the early stages because I know that we're still trying to figure out some of these things, and parts of this are really now a lot more robust in terms of how we do them. But for us, I think deployment, planning, and making sure that we really articulate and select really ideal initial locations so that we are giving Jeremy the evidence that he needs when he goes to do a broader expansion. And then making sure that we're also crossing our T's and dotting our I's in terms of ongoing support. So those pilot locations ought to see a decrease in the number of tickets associated with comfort. We ought to have more visibility into the technical issues that might come up, a rooftop unit needing maintenance or something else, so that it's obvious, not just the immediate ROI, but also some of those more intangible ROI factors.
Yeah, that's great. So to summarize, the logistics of it all, there's a lot of things that come into play. There could be economics, there could be geography of locations. There's like, what does the installation and rollout look like? It could be an initiative around cost reduction or even risk mitigation and how it factors into a lot of those things. So that's a few topics for the viewers to think about if you're thinking about adopting an EMS. You mentioned intangible views or intangible wins, something that's not on the balance sheet necessarily, but definitely factors in. So, Jeremy, I'm going to go to you for this next question. So, what specific metrics or proof points did you find most compelling when presenting the results back to the leadership team after the pilot or even during the pilot? And is there any storytelling techniques that you found to be particularly effective in doing so?
Well, absolutely. This again is kind of twofold, right? There's the things that are important to me, and then there are the things that are important to my target audience, right? And knowing the target audience well, making those emotional deposits in advance, getting that rapport with them really goes a long way. And I learned that if I build to my conclusion, I'll lose people by the end when I get to the good stuff. So always, always, I lead with the conclusion and then wait to see if additional clarification is required, and then tailor the build to that conclusion based on the feedback of the individual or group that I'm presenting to, right? And there's always going to be a dichotomy between projected and actual sales, right? So we're always going to need to build into the program, this is what we're projecting, and then this is where we validate, right? And then these are the qualitative benefits as well as the quantitative ones, right? This journey with the Mysa team did not necessarily run smooth, but that's okay because we make mistakes, we learn, we refine, and we move forward. There's an old proverb, and I always pull back from these proverbs and metaphors. But if there's a solid relationship with the people that are on the bus, if the road gets bumpy, you're not looking to get off the bus. If the road you have to take a detour because of a perceived obstacle in the path in front, then you do what needs to be done to continue moving forward. So building that logic into the explanation is always helpful, showing that these are our plan A, plan B, plan C, right? Like, so you're building that into the case study, not necessarily leading with those because that would be leading with the chin, but having them there to speak to potential risks, to show that you've done your homework and that you're not necessarily jumping into this eyes wide closed, right? So this is
Yeah, definitely. I like your approach with start with the conclusion, kind of dangle the carrot a little bit and capture their attention, and then work back from there to how are we going to get this done? And knowing your audience, building that rapport, you can appeal to their needs. So, Peter, after designing several pilot programs, what decisions do you believe are key to maximizing the success rate of those, or just defining overall success in the pilot period?
Uh, I'll steal a little line from Jeremy here, and that's we should start with the story we want to tell at the end. So even before the program starts, we try to get alignment around what the outcome we're trying to demonstrate is going to be. Is the story an energy saving story? Is the story a visibility and control story? Is it about making sure that we've got good view into the decrease in the number of support or maintenance tickets that are being generated? We need to know what story we're aiming at and making sure that we're aligned around what that ought to be. And then I think probably the next is making sure that we have a sufficiently large sample. And what I mean by that is if you're going to do a pilot and you're aiming to get a full rollout, you can't do one or two locations. And part of the reason for that is the power of Mysa HQ is really the number of sites that are under control. And so if you only have one or two, it's easy to slip into this mindset of I could use product A or product B rather than the unique solution that we're trying to offer. And as a result, you don't see some of those like efficiency gains that I think that we deliver through the platform. The next one is making sure that the sites we select have visibility into the metric that you're trying to move forward. And what I mean by that, and this is probably an opportunity that we've learned as a result of having worked with Jeremy, and we've done well in some of the other retail brands that we've entered into, is have we got detailed meter data over multiple years where we are able to show the before and after view of the energy use profile. And I think in the case of Neighbourly, we've had some good energy data, and we've been able to sort of quantify some of the energy savings. But when I think to some of our more recent and maybe more detailed pilots that we've done, we've got 15-minute energy data for the location, and you're able to see the impact of schedules and lockouts and just this distributed control in clear detail. And I think that that's a big opportunity as well. And then the last is around making sure that we deliver on deployment. And I kind of talked a little bit about that before, but we've got to have somebody on our team who is helping to coordinate and drive deployment to make sure that thermostats come online when we commit to bringing them online. We need to work with an installation partner. Not Jeremy, but others have had sort of this concept of having deployments done by folks in-house. And it's not that folks in-house are incapable of doing it, but it's difficult to prioritize thermostat deployment when you're constantly fighting fires. And so we've learned and now insist on having a mechanical contractor, ours or yours, in the loop and helping us do that deployment, just so that we can guarantee that thermostats are going to come online and be efficient when they do. And then the last thing is just making sure that we've got regular check-ins along the way. We've got a good relationship with Jeremy. We chat, but we try and do this regular check-in with everybody to see, how has deployment gone? Are we on track? How has the onboarding gone? Have you got your schedule set, your lockouts? Are you familiar with the platform? Do you know what you're looking at? Are there any issues that are coming up? Tackling those problems early on, getting through kind of those growing pains in the pilot phase so that this becomes a regular and usable part of the facility manager's tool belt.
That's great. Thank you, Peter. I love that. We're just going to go with one last slide here. And Jeremy, looking back, what mistakes would you caution other facility managers to avoid when pitching or piloting HVAC technology or an EMS or anything of the like?
Okay, so I've learned a lot of lessons through our deployment, and hopefully you can learn vicariously through me and not make the same mistakes that I did. Number one, cherry pick the locations to tell the story, control the narrative. Make sure that you're picking locations that are going to produce the biggest ROI. We scattered our locations across a vast country, and in doing that, we increased our cost of installation by a significant amount to make the ROI period longer than it had to be. Clustering locations will allow for greater control, and it'll also keep your costs down so that you can generate the ROI that's needed to move forward. The types of energy and seasonal fluctuations, critical. Need to take into account the type of equipment that you have at different stores or different locations. And if it's electricity or gas powered, that's going to make a difference in your ROI calculations, right? Also, climate, handling issues through shoulder seasons where the temperature is adjusting and the climate isn't either hot or cold. It's kind of somewhere in between and changes by the day. That it was a bit of a stumbling block for us initially in terms of setting occupied and unoccupied hours, which caused complaints from the field. And we need the location managers to be our advocates and not give them an opportunity to to lead the narrative in a direction that is counter the 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 narrative of the overall goal of the project deployment team. Also, additional time to socialize the plan and action and Q&A with all levels of the organization before deployment, so that everyone feels vested in the success of the project and the decision being made. We didn't have enough feedback at store level in advance of the project. It was a decision that was made strategically by leadership and then deployed. So the team felt that this was something that was done to them and not for them, and we had to start from behind and earn their favor after the fact. Before deployment, it would have made a huge difference. Order really does matter. Um, Leasing considerations, profitability of store, and strategic plans for locations. Those factors need to be built in to the deal, because if you end up with, for example, a location where you invest dollars and cents and there's a demolition clause that pops up later, that the landlord gives you notice that you need to vacate the location, then your investment gets lost in the rubble when they demo that building to build condos or what have you, right? So always check the leases, very, very important. And then I kind of categorize this one as save a nickel, spend a dime. Initially, we were trying to minimize our outlay, and we had the initial site inspection done by our personnel. They took pictures, sent them back, and we built a plan for deployment based on data that was collected by pharmacists that not their focus, not their forte. And we had some bad data that we needed to pivot and change and abort and choose new locations on the fly, which just adds to a little dampener on the mood and affects the narrative of the rollout that we're trying to control. And then last but certainly not least, on my list of takeaways is have that plan in place for next steps, for time checks, to look at your results and measurable at a certain point, and the go forward strategy built in. If this is presented as part of the pilot, once the pilot's completed, then you can run with your next steps. We got approval for the pilot, and unfortunately, because of some matters out of our control, we couldn't get audience again at a CapEx meeting in the time frame that we wanted to get approval for the next wave. So build that in, ask for it the first time, that if everything goes well and you hit these matrices, there's pre-approval and budget set aside to roll out the next wave. That way you don't lose that momentum and have to start and stop again, which is what happened to us. So sorry about the long list of lessons, but hopefully you won't have to make the same mistakes that we did.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing these candidly. I mean, nobody nails it the first time or even the second time, but as long as you're improving and learning along the way, as you can see in Peter's background, always getting better is in our DNA. So improving upward and onward. So I just have one last question for you, Jeremy. What has adopting Mysa's EMS done for your stress levels, like before and after? Has Has it opened things up for you? Give us a peek in the window of what that looks like in your day to day.
Well, I know that the locations where we've installed the smart thermostats and we have Mysa HQ running them, once we worked out the initial sort of pain points in terms of finding the right set points and what have you, and educating the team on how to use them, it's very set it and forget it unless something goes wrong, right? And when something goes wrong, it's alerting us to an issue that may require a truck roll, where before I wouldn't have been alerted to an issue until you really desperately needed a truck roll because it was in the middle of a heat wave and they have no air, leading to a business interruption, or the opposite, it's the middle of the winter and um, your product is being frozen on the shelves, right? It's so and pipes are bursting as a result. So it's uh my overall feeling is that when this is in all stores, it will relieve a lot of stress that I currently have about unknowns, and it'll shine a light on uh, early sign of detection, really. And that's my feeling. We're still um, fairly early in the process. We only have a small segment of our entire fleet of locations tied into Mysa HQ. Uh, as we scale, stress level will drop. Today, Kyle, I'm still pins and needles because there's a lot of things that I don't know what I don't know. And Mysa HQ will help me know more about that unknown.
Yeah. Well, you guys keep acquiring new locations. It's hard to keep up with your rest of
You're telling me.
Well, thanks for those thoughts, Jeremy and Peter. I appreciate you guys carving out some time in your day to share those experiences for anyone else who's kind of in the same position and approaching the adoption of technology to make sure that they're not on pins and needles as much as possible. So thank you both very much. We'll call it there.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Everyone.